everyone, back again. This is my mandatory reporting video for the state of New Hampshire. It's a little different. There is actually two different ways to report, one for children and one for elder abuse. So I'll start off with the children. People that are required to report child abuse and neglect are basically any healthcare personnel such as physicians, surgeons, even a medical examiner, psychiatrists, residents, interns, dentists, psychology therapists, teachers, school officials, school nurses, school counselors, social workers, daycare workers, any other child or foster care worker, law enforcement, that type of stuff. When this report is made, it is made to the Central Intake Department at DCYF, and that is located in Concord, New Hampshire. Once the report is made, the Central Intake Unit will review the report and determine if an assessment by the local DCYF office is needed. If it's found that it is not needed, that report that is made stays on file for a year. And if another report is made on the same family, it is again brought back through Central Intake. Even though they already have the report, they'll reassess and determine if a local DCYF worker needs to go out to the home. Let's see. Sorry, I'm going over my notes. In the state of New Hampshire, mandated reporters are offered certain amount of protection, such as they are immune from any civil or criminal liability, according to the New Hampshire law, which is, I believe, RSA 169-C, Section 31. So that means if they're making a report, they can't be held liable for whatever. Their identity and the content of the report is remained confidential unless the court orders DCYF to release that particular type of information. The reporter can also ask to remain anonymous, which most of them do, and even though the reporter has given a verbal report over the phone through Central Intake in Concord, they sometimes may often be asked to write a written report as well. Here in the state of New Hampshire, they also have what they call, it's called a Special Investigations Unit, and this is a unit that also does investigations into any abuse or neglect or maltreatment of a child that resides in a foster home, an institutional setting, residential care, educational, or any type of treatment facility. And the same procedure is followed. DCYF Central Intake is called, and if it is an after-hours situation, the reporters are asked to call 911 or the local facility, and they can get somebody in touch. And they have emergency workers that will come out and assess the situation at that particular point. So it was kind of interesting to do this. I found it interesting that there was a lot more information asked when I get onto the elder abuse, that there's a lot more information asked in that particular reporting than there is in the reporting of child abuse and neglect. When you call Central Intake, you know, they ask you the name and the address, what you believe that the abuse is and whatnot, but I don't know if it's minimized because it's a child and I don't know. They didn't ask a lot of questions. I ended up actually calling and speaking to somebody over at Central Intake and asking what type of questions that they would ask for a mandated reporter. And for children, there really isn't that much. Like I said, it's the name of the child, the age, the suspected abuse, where the child lives, who you think the suspected abuser is, and basically that's it. So I was kind of questioning. It seems kind of hard to make a determination to go out and assess, and I do believe that they have 48 hours to look at the report and call the local office and send somebody out if they deem that it's necessary. So now in the state of New Hampshire, for elder abuse and neglect, for mandated reporters, it required the New Hampshire law, which is RSA 161-F46, requires any person who has reason to believe that an elderly, incapacitated adult has been subjected to physical abuse, neglect, or financial exploitation, or if they're living in hazardous conditions, to notify the Department of Health and Human Services or their local law enforcement agency. So this particular law pertains to anybody. It could be somebody on the street saying, hey, I need to call and report this. This is what's going on. And they can make a report. With children, it's different. It's a lot more involved. And they're also, the mandated reporter is also allowed the same anonymity as a person reporting child abuse or neglect. And anybody else who makes a report, again, is held with immunity from any criminal or civil liability that there might be, unless it's the alleged perpetrator themselves. If there is a suspected abuse of self-neglect, neglect, exploitation, maltreatment, the the Bureau of Adult and Elderly Services needs to be contacted. The mandated reporter does not have to have proof of the abuse. Then the reports are still, they are confidential and they are anonymous. Again, the Bureau of Adult and Elderly Services does not release the information of who's calling and where they live unless they have a court order to do so. When the mandated reporter makes a report for elder abuse and neglect, they are looking for the name, address, sex, and age of the adult that is required, the name, address, and phone number of a person who is legally responsible or guardian of this particular individual, the nature of the call and the extent of the individual's injuries, maltreatment, or neglect, and where the abuse could have occurred, the living arrangement of the abused individual, any information that the caller may have on previous abuse, injuries, or maltreatment or neglect, and if the mandated reporter feels that the individual they're calling on is at a high risk, how they learned of the situation, and any action that was taken to treat the or assist the individual in the meantime, and also the name, address, and phone number, if they have it, of the person responsible for the abuse, neglect, or exploitation. They'll ask for your name and phone number, and anything else that the reporter has that might be helpful for them to have their case. The mandated reporter needs to call the Bureau of Adult and Elderly Services, which is their central intake, basically, during the weekday. And if it's after hours, which I believe they close at 4:30, you need to call your local police department or 911. And then also they have the long-term care ombudsman is somebody that can be called for any abuse, neglect, or exploitation of individuals that currently reside in long-term care facilities or nursing facilities. So it's a little bit more, there's more, to me there was more, it seems like there was more information required for an elderly individual than there was for a child. They definitely ask for more information in regards to an elder abuse and neglect. I actually ended up having to call, I had to call a couple of weeks ago on a particular patient that came in, and this was due to self-neglect. She had lived in a hoarding-like environment with feces all over the place. She came in with multiple bed sores, lice, and she lived with her husband, and neither one of them are able to take care of themselves. So I had to call the Bureau of Adult and Elderly Services, and they went down the list and asked all of these questions. I've never had to call on a child before, so that was kind of interesting to do all of the research in regards to trying to find out exactly what it is that they were looking for in regards to reporting. Here at the hospital where I currently work, the policy is the same as it is as if I was outside of the hospital. I am a mandated reporter because I am a healthcare professional. So I am required by law to notify anybody if I suspect abuse in an elderly individual or a child. I don't particularly work with children, so like I said, I've never had to call. But it's pretty much the same here. The hospital actually has a form that we fill out, and then we call the central intake office for either DCYF or for the Bureau of Adult and Elderly Services, and then it's pretty much standard from there. So it's pretty straightforward. You see the abuse, you need to make the phone call. You would hope that people would continue to do so. Like I said before, again, it's a little different with children. There's a lot more structure with that, I guess. With the laws between the two, it's kind of different. Whereas they were giving strict names as to who was a mandated reporter for individuals with children, and then for adult and elderly services, it could be anybody off the street, which was quite surprising to me. So that is my mandated reporting for the state of New Hampshire, and like I said, the policy at the hospital is basically the same as the state law requires. All hospital personnel in direct contact with the patient needs to call and follow the central intake rules in regards to making a report. Thank you for listening.